Have you ever wondered the problems of book banning? Like specifically, what it impacts on education, mental health, or even just support? Today we will be going over challenged books, book details, why it was challenged, why it should not be banned, where it can be allowed to be banned, and then have a recap. I picked 3 books that have been challenged to be banned, and the first book is 1984, challenged for political ideology. The second book is Identical, challenged for being pornographic and violent, and The Hunger Games, challenged for graphic violence and political ideology. Some details about the book 1984. The book 1984 by George Orwell is a classic dystopian novel about a totalitarian superstate, Oceania, where the party led by the government, the omnipresent Big Brother, controls every aspect of life, including thought through surveillance, propaganda, and psychological manipulation. Totalitarianism is where the party seeks absolute power for its own sake, controlling history, manipulation, and even thoughts. So it's pretty bad. The surveillance would be telescreens, which constantly monitor the mind and their citizens, and they use thought police to punish rebellious thoughts. So if you think back on it, you would say if you even thought a little bit of a rebellion, like burning a flag where we have it in the United States, that would be terribly punished. So it can be very political. So why was it challenged? It was political. 1984 was challenged due to its intense political themes, explicit and sexual content, and perceived pro-communist and anti-government messages. So, now, why it should not be banned. 1984 should not be banned because it is a crucial literary warning against totalitarianism, censorship, and the loss of independent thought. Banning it is ironic, as the novel warns against the very, suppression of ideas that book bans represent. It promotes critical thinking, civic responsibility, and the recognition of propaganda. The novel teaches readers to question authority, recognize the dangers of government overreach, and the value of free speech. It highlights how controlling language can limit thought and reality, a warning that remains relevant to modern communication. We will get to where it can be banned later with the other books. Details about the book Identical. The book Identical, The book Identical by Ellen Hopkins is a young adult novel written in verse, so like poetry, that tells the story of Kaylee and Rayanne Gardella, identical twins in a dysfunctional home. Behind their outwardly perfect lives as daughters of a judge and politician, the twins grapple with sexual abuse, eating disorders, and the deep secrets leading to a traumatic climax. So the twins, Kaylee, the good twin, struggles with sexual abuse by her father, resulting in her cutting and severe eating disorders. Rayanne, feeling neglected, goes to drugs and alcohol, as well as sexual promiscuity, acting out in that way. Why was it challenged? It's pretty self-explanatory. Identical is frequently challenged or banned from school libraries due to its intense mature content, including explicit depictions of sexual abuse, incest, drug use, and violence. Critics argue that the graphic material is inappropriate for teen readers. So again, with sexual content and incest, the novel's centers around the twins struggling to cope with sexual abuse by their father, which is definitely worse. The graphic content again and dark themes such as alcoholism, self-harm, suicide, and emotional abuse. And then why it should not be banned. Ellen Hopkins, a frequently banned author, argues that her books reflect the real, often dark experiences that some teenagers live through. She believes removing these books denies young readers a chance to find characters who mirror their own struggles and learn about empathy. Identical serves as a crucial empathetic tool for teenagers dealing with trauma, abuse, and addiction. Rather than a how-to guide for illicit behaviors, the novel provides realistic verse-style narratives that help young readers process difficult life experiences, fostering resilience and offering a sense of connection that prevents them from feeling alone in their struggles. The validation of real-world issues, empowerment, and education, encouraging empathy and understanding, and then protection through knowledge. The book may be a little dark, and it may be not suitable for young readers, but it definitely has a big role, and it can have a big role in other people's lives if they're going through something like that, because sometimes they can't reach out. In this book, it could be a comfort book for them. And again, we will get back to where it can be banned later with the rest of the books. So details about the book, The Hunger Games. The Hunger Games by Susan Collins is a dystopian young adult novel that follows the 16-year-old Katniss Everdeen as she volunteers to take her sister's place in a televised fight to the death in the nation of Panem, a post-apocalyptic North America. The story inspired, this was news, the story inspired by the myth of Theseus and the Minotaur and Roman gladiatorial games explores themes of survival, sacrifice, and rebellion against a cruel capital that forces each of its 12 districts to send 2 children to compete annually. The plot is each year the capital forces 1 boy and 1 girl, known as tributes, to fight to the death in the game of the Hunger Games. The thing about the Hunger Games is that the only reason someone will really fight to the death is because, well, they want to live, and they also get food and are provided with stuff they need to live if they win. So it's kind of returning to your families with something, and not all of them want to do it. A lot of them lose because they don't want to fight to the death. So it can be very emotional. So why was it challenged? The Hunger Games was frequently challenged primarily due to its graphic violence, dark themes, and suitability for younger readers. Critics and parents often cited the insensitive nature of children killing one another alongside concerns regarding anti-family, anti-ethnic, and religious viewpoints. The core premise involves teenagers fighting to the death, which many felt was too intense and violent for young adult readers. It did have controversial themes, so critics sometimes viewed the book as promoting anti-government or anti-ethnic messages, or worried it could be numb to children. It could numb children to violence, resulting in, children fighting each other, thinking it was fun. And in the movies, it does show children fighting each other. So it does have a very political viewpoint, as the Hunger Games did all start with a war, and that's how it resulted in 2 children going from 12 districts to fight to the death with 1 winner. Why it should not be banned? The Hunger Games should not be banned because it serves as a crucial warning against authoritarianism, injustice, and the desensitizing effects of violence. Rather than promoting negativity, the novel encourages critical thinking about societal hierarchy, social inequality, and the importance of empathy. So it encourages critical thinking. So it addresses a complex themes such as the abuse of power, political oppression, and the consequences of war, which are relevant to to current societal issues. There's also warning against barbarism. The story highlights the dangers of letting a few elite, control the majority, acting as a cautionary tale rather than a glorification of violence. Portraying sacrifice and love. Katniss volunteered for her sister Prim, which therefore portrays love. Her mother was suffering from the loss of her husband, and Katniss really wanted her mother to be there for Prim, so then whenever she did go to the games, she wouldn't have to worry about her sister not getting enough food or support. Valuable perspective for youth. It helps young readers understand the importance of questioning authority and recognizing the humanity in others. If we all just chose books that didn't have any government issues in them, none of us would know what the consequences could be if we were to just ignore those facts. We could turn into the Hunger Games. We could turn into 1984. And that's just what it could be. Misinterpreted themes, which challenges to the book often misinterpret its critique of power, which some bans arguably stemming from a desire to suppress themes of rebellion or to avoid addressing uncomfortable topics. So now what we have all been waiting for, where it should and should not be banned. 1984 in elementary schools, and that's it. Because really it is not that violent, and it's a very good learning experience for younger adults, such as preteens, and then again with teenagers. It can really be a good learning experience to find out what our society could turn into and how, whenever you're growing up, to look for government issues. For identical, it should be banned in elementary schools and middle schools. Why? Well, that was in the other past slide about why it was challenged. It can be very gruesome for elementary schoolers, and they could get nightmares or think of their father differently, as well as middle schoolers, because you don't have the mature capacity to understand that it is fictional, and they could think that it could really, really happen to them, when it really could, but it is for the older high schoolers and adults, because they do go through that, some of them. The Hunger Games, elementary schools. The Hunger Games is also very educational, leading us to know what could happen to our government, what could happen to us. If we really just let our government take control of everything, we would also be sacrificing our children without even some consent. So the Hunger Games really does have a lot of educational purpose. Today, we went over the challenged books, 1984, Identical, and the Hunger Games. Book details of those books, why it was challenged, why it should not be banned, and where it can be allowed to be banned, as well as our recap right here. Thank you for going through our books that could be banned and challenged.